Trekkies, and welcome to Trek Freaks, part of the Geek Freaks podcast network. On this podcast, we review and analyze episodes of Star Trek starting all the way back at the original series. My name is John, and I'll be one of your hosts, joined by my good friend and co-host, Kevin.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, good. So, what episode are we reviewing today, Kevin?
We are talking about the fun episode of Season 2, Episode 8, I, Mud.
Yes, as you know by the title, this has Mr. Harry Mudd in it again. He is one of my favorite reoccurring terrible characters. Before we dive into the Warp Speed recap, I got a good question for you, though.
Oh, let's have it.
This episode's got some androids in it, so I want to know, what would you do if you had an army of androids?
An army of androids, well.
Yeah, or a massive population of androids.
Yeah, it would be hard to stick with this, so bear with me. However, I want to say what I would do would be use them to like harvest fields, farm, build solar power panels and stuff, and try to help the hunger and power crises around the world. Send them to lesser fortunate countries to help them get water and food and clean energy, and do the same thing here. I think I would try to use them for a force for good, but androids being what they are, I don't think it'd be too long before they turn against us. So probably die would be the answer.
Die. What would I do with an army of androids? Probably die.
Die. Yes.
Right. Yeah, similar, like along the same lines. I'd probably try to help humanity and try to advance science to the max. Like they're smart little machines and they can do so much. So I'd see they can work without getting tired and stuff. So yeah, I would try to see how far we can advance our scientific knowledge and technology. That'd be pretty cool.
Nice.
All right, but with no further ado, let's get into our warp speed recap. Infiltrated by an undercover android, the Enterprise is commandeered and directed to an unknown planet. Once in orbit, they beam down to find none other than Harry Mudd I. Captive ruler of a planet of androids, Mudd plans to leave the Enterprise crew in his place for these androids to study as he ventures off in a state-of-the-art starship. Kirk and crew outsmart the androids, not with logic, but with complete nonsense. Now the androids follow Kirk's orders. They return his ship and he leaves... Sorry, let me re-say that one. They return his ship and he leaves them with a new purpose. Settle this planet, make good use of its resources, and keep an eye on Harry Mudd.
That was a much more fun episode than I thought it was gonna be.
Yeah, and it was a short recap, I realize now. Usually my recaps are a little longer than that.
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't a whole lot else to talk about other than, everything else that we're going to be talking about. But as far as the big picture goes, I think you hit it. I think you got it.
Yeah, that was a really fun episode. I like all of them with Harry Mudd in him. Not because he's a great guy. He's a terrible person, but he's a great character, and I think you'd love to hate him. He's fun.
I didn't realize it's been a week since I watched the episode, so my memory might be a little fuzzy at parts, but I didn't remember how fun the episode was until you brought up how they beat the androids by using total nonsense. I'm like, okay, yeah, that stuff was fun. That was cool.
Yeah, that was like a long bit of just nonsense.
That had to have been fun to act too.
Oh yeah, I imagine, because they can. Oh, I'm not sure how much direction they got on set, but I imagine it was probably just do something silly,
right?
And we're gonna be filming. It could pretty much be whatever. So we start out. We're on the Enterprise. Bones seems bothered by a new crewman who seems a little too serious, and he's joking around with Spock because Spock is always pretty serious. But that made me wonder. He sees him walking by. I guess they know his name is Norman. I assume maybe he was like a recent transfer to the ship or whatever. But wouldn't you think on a ship like this, you would know everybody? There should be at least if someone's getting transferred on that's... So most of these people you're living with, right? And you are in life and death situations with them, so you have to be able to rely on them. But you would think when somebody new is joining the ship, they would be introduced to everybody and spend time getting to know all their crew members to some extent, rather than some guy walks by and that's just another crewman. I don't know him, but he seems a little odd. What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely agree. And it seems like that I think he was trying to get him to do his like physical or something, trying to get him
Mhm.
into med bay to do that. But it seems like that should have been something that should have happened before he even got on board the ship,
Yeah,
I would
should be
think.
like before he has free reign to go wherever he wants. You got to go through your physical and
Yeah.
like a introductory training or something like that.
Like,
Just at least know how to navigate the ship and stuff like that.
right. And like, how did he go through the process of getting on board the ship if he wasn't vetted prior to being picked up by the Enterprise, the flagship of the Federation?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. That's a. I mean, obviously they don't want to dwell on it. They just kind of skim over that part. But yeah, and it leaves us with a lot of questions. But then we see Norman enters the auxiliary control room. He knocks out a crewman and starts manipulating all the controls. Sulu tells Kirk that he's lost control of the ship pretty much. The course is being changed and he can't correct it. Then Norman is taking over engineering, the control room I think is like that raised platform in engineering. It's in the same area, but so we see he's taking it over and he hits Scotty. I don't remember exactly how he hit. I think it just like chopped at him. And then we see, Scotty like kind of falls to the controls or, he's in pain. But to me, he was like in too much pain for like one hit. He was like incapacitated. We look away at another scene and then we come back to him and he's still just like, oh no, like still whimpering in pain. Like, do you think Scotty should have been a little more injured? I think I would have liked to see, it would have been, rough, but that he like broke his arm or dislocated his shoulder or something heavy was like thrown on him, so he was kind of pinned, or a little more. Maybe it was like a phaser shot that was just a stun, but at least he was stunned. Something that was a little more than just the karate chop that disabled him for quite a while. What do you think?
When you said broke his arm, that's exactly what I was thinking. Is like he should have done like a hip toss thing, like the guy could have like thrown him over with his arm and like twisted his arm in the process and broke it. Or like maybe he landed on his ankle.
And a little sound effect that makes a popping sound or
exactly,
something.
Yeah.
That would have been perfect.
He could have landed on an ankle so he couldn't get back up because he like twisted or broke an ankle or something. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Stepped into a bear trap. Come on.
Something.
Yeah. So then we see Norman makes it to the bridge and grabs the captain's arm. He explains that he has control of the ship already, but he means no harm to his people and he just needs to take the ship. After this, oh, sorry, one sec. Oh, yeah. So after this, he shows them that he is an android. They're, confused about who he is and how he is and why he is. So he opens up this like compartment on his stomach that shows electrical components. That was, whatever, cheesy. There's other ways, I hope. I mean, androids have just an access panel on their stomach, but it was clearly remastered at least.
Yeah.
Like I didn't take the time. I should have looked up what the original, scene looked like, what his components look like. I imagine just a bunch of little like turning gears, maybe some copper exposed wires or something like that.
Yeah, I actually did watch one of those comparison videos of the original versus the remaster. And it was basically that. Yeah, it looked better than I thought that it would have for the original series. But yeah, this is definitely like it doesn't fit with the rest of the episode the way they remastered it. Like it doesn't look right. I almost wish they would have not remastered it, except maybe remastered the stomach because it was clearly a fake stomach. Like they could have made that part look a little bit more. I don't know.
Yeah, remaster it to that period's technology though. Like make it look better, but still make it look like gears and a little steam vent or whatever.
Right.
Like old school. I don't know. That's one thing. So not to get completely derailed, but when we're watching right now the new show, Strange New Worlds is airing, and we're seeing their ship that's supposed to be before this time period, and the same Enterprise but older, and the technology looks so much more advanced. I would love to have seen them really do a clean, professional job with switches and knobs like they have on the ship now, and then maybe some display consoles that we couldn't see before, but not the more advanced tech that we're starting to see. It's a little, I don't know, throws you off a little bit.
There's a lot of technology that's on the Enterprise and Strange New Worlds that didn't exist, 10 years after the fact in the original series. And I do like to think of it as just as a visual retcon, which isn't as big of a deal to me, but I know it was my biggest gripe when the 2009 Star Trek movie from J.J. Abrams came out, was that
Hmm.
this is not that same ship. It looks too clean. It looks too neat. And now Strange New Worlds comes out. Oh, it's so perfect. It's the perfect show. So, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I get it. I get it.
So we see that he's an android. He opens that compartment. Uh, then he explains that they're going to travel to his planet, which is 4 days away. He kind of like he doesn't turn himself off, doesn't completely like shut down, but he goes dormant. So he's just standing in one position with his eyes closed. This android Norman, he practically turns himself off for 4 days while they travel. So my question for you is, would you try to like deactivate him or do something to him while he's asleep?
That was my
I mean,
first thought when I was watching the episode. We're agreeing on everything so far. It's great. Yeah, that was my
yeah, it's
first
like
thought when I was watching this part of the episode, was that yeah, they could have tried something. Maybe they were trying to save as much screen time for Mud later on as
mhm,
possible, but there could have been some
yeah,
attempt at trying to disable or deactivate him prior to
yeah.
getting to the planet and then taking the ship back over. But
So he whatever he did, he put in like safety guards or whatever to where the the control he has over the ship, it's having to go to his home planet. If they try to override that, it would self-destruct or something like that. It would destroy something. So it'd at least be good to see Scotty trying to bypass his
right,
bypass or something like that, and then it doesn't work and it shorts out a panel, and he's stunned or something like that. So they realize like, okay, you know what, we can't mess with his technology. We need to just be patient and see what he needs. But I know it's another scene, and we're trying to get to Mud, not trying to spend too much time on the ship. So
right.
maybe they're just like, hey, we'll just play the politics game, and we'll go see what these guys are all about, and make first contact in a pleasant way, I guess. So they arrive to his planet. They're in orbit. Norman asks the captain to beam down with a select few crewmen, and obviously he doesn't want to. He's skeptical what's going to happen, but they beam down anyways. Then they're led into a room where they meet once again Mr. Harry Mudd sitting on a throne. He calls himself Harry Mudd the First. It's so good to see Harry again, though. I love. I don't. I got to look up how many other episodes he's in, but yeah, we've seen him at least once before. But he's a fun character.
Yeah,
He's a
I love that they hardly ever use his full name in this. I think they said that his name is Harcourt Fenton Mudd, and he
yeah.
like totally steers away from that name at any given opportunity. Like I'm Sir Harry Mudd the First or something along those lines.
Yeah. So he explains that he rules this planet of androids. And then Mudd tells Kirk, settle in, Kirk, old boy, because they're gonna be there for life, the rest of their life. And he specifies that he had 500 of the same attractive model of android built to serve him. So he's a bunch of androids, but the perverted man that Harry Mudd is, he has specific androids made to look like these attractive women from his past or whatever. So he boasts that he had 500 of this model made for him. But so that leads me to the sexual innuendo and stuff like that. How do you feel about the innuendo in this episode? How he's, more or less just not beat around the bush. He's insinuating that he's created these attractive robots and he sleeps with them, and they're there to serve his every need. Um, but what do you think? Do you think it was too much, or was it done
It
tastefully?
it fits the character, and it's better than having 500 enslaved actual living beings that do
Yeah,
that. So there's
true,
that.
true.
Obviously it's gross, but it's also, our favorite gross character doing his
Yeah.
favorite gross things. So Harry Mudd gonna Harry Mudd.
Yeah. So that's what I was trying to get to too, is that it's sexually suggestive. It's not outright vulgar, and it's I think it was tasteful the way Star Trek portrayed it. And it's not that we're saying this is a good thing to do. This is a character that we love to hate. So he's a bad guy. Um, but maybe when Chekhov kind of jokes about it and he's happy that they're programmed that way, that's negative impact on his character. But yeah, I think it was done well. It could have easily been too much if they kind of rewrote it a little bit, but I
Yeah.
like the way it was done. Um, and it really helps kind of cement Harry's character of who we know him to be. He was a swindler before, and then selling off women and stuff like that. So it just kind of solidifies who he is, which is a great character to hate. But
You want to, you're writing that episode and you're trying to reintroduce the character of Mud, you want to get across the fact that he's a despicable human being in as many different ways as possible, and his being able to take advantage of the fact that he can have any form of android that he wants is, I think it was a good way to introduce how slimy he is. So.
Yeah. The whole time I'm watching this episode, though, the one thing I'm thinking that's probably not great is like I could totally cosplay Harry Mudd. Like he's overweight, he's balding, like I could do that. And speaking with that overacting that he does,
have to do the voice for sure.
Yeah, his character is so great, so that'd be a lot of fun. It'd be fun, but then people are probably gonna spit on you as you walk down the hall.
Well, my wife used to be in she was heavily into theater when she was in high school and stuff, and she always says that the most fun people to play are the villains, the bad guys.
Yeah.
Because you get to step so far outside of who you normally are to portray this person, this despicable person. So I feel that that's probably how the actor that played Mud felt, and that's probably about how you would feel if you were to cosplay. It's like, yeah, this isn't me, but it's so much more fun because it's so different from who I am.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so we see Mud kind of explains, or no, not Mud, sorry. One of the androids, I think it was Norman, explains how Mud got to where he is. Oh, no, that's a lie. I'm sorry. Back and forth. Mud explains some, Norman explains more later. So he was caught selling stolen Vulcan technology, blueprints and stuff. So then he stole a ship and fled. He wandered unmapped space until he was crash landed on this planet. Then the androids serve him, but they also need him because they want to study humans. They don't have a leader. They don't have a human or humanoid non-android person to guide them. So they don't have a purpose, pretty much. And so they won't let him go. So that's where he makes this exchange of, hey, I'll get you a good specimen. I'll get you a captain of a starship and the crew, and then you just help me take the ship, and I'll go on my merry way. So that's why Kirk and his crew were taken in his place to pretty much free Mud. Could you think of a better way for him to get free, though, instead of taking somebody else to replace him?
Maybe not make a shitload more androids yourself and try to deactivate the one or ones that are there.
I create an android civil war.
Basically. I think that he enjoyed that lifestyle like too much, and then he got himself in too deep that the only way he could think of to escape was to come up with this master plan of capturing his old rival. I don't know. It's such a far-fetched premise for a story that I don't know of a better way to get him free.
And his challenge, I mean, he enjoyed the planet for so long, but now he's grown bored. Like, he's done everything he could do, and there's nothing else to do there. So to me, I wouldn't necessarily just try to ditch the androids. Like, they're a super helpful, valuable asset. If you can continue to lead them, do so. But I would give them a new purpose and say, hey, you know what we need to do? We've seen everything there is to see on this planet. We need to explore. We need to find other test subjects for you to study, and those are on other planets. So let's go, searching in different directions. And that way he gets off the planet. He can go mingle with different alien races and different planets and, maybe conquer them if he wants to, but preferably not.
I think you just created my favorite hypothetical spin-off series of Star Trek.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Just Mud and his androids going off and exploring strange new worlds and doing basically what the Enterprise is doing, but like kind of the opposite as well.
Yeah, because imagine wherever he goes, he's going to take advantage of the local population. So he's probably going to continue to create more androids, and then they will kind of embed themselves or take over the planet's, people, and maybe create a bunch of slaves in the process. I don't know. Depends on how despicable Harry wants to go with it.
The other thing about Mud is that he seems less despicable than in Discovery, when they have him in a couple episodes of Discovery.
Oh, yeah. He's in the shorts, right?
I think he's in one of the shorts, or he debuted in that, but he was in an episode, at least one episode of of Discovery where he created a time loop thing where he's trying to take over the ship from Lorca, who was the captain in season 1. Or I think that was season 1. They had him like as a straight up villain, like like not a funny type of villain like they have in this show. So just wanted to bring that up a little bit.
Yeah, I like to like assume or kind of see that he's a bad guy because he only cares about himself and he'll do whatever it takes to get the upper hand. But that he's also misunderstood and we can't see what it is we don't see, but we know that he doesn't think he's a bad guy.
Right.
He doesn't think what he's doing is unjust or corrupt or anything like that, but obviously from our perspective it is. But after this scene, we see one of my favorite parts of this episode is hilarious. Is he had a android made specifically like his wife, who he left and abandoned long ago, I imagine, named Stella, and so he can activate her with voice commands, and she just starts nagging at him, just yelling at him the same old stuff that he would hear every night when he come home from the bar or whatever. And when he tells her to shut up, she just deactivates and shuts down in place. And I just thought that was so hilarious. Obviously, not great in marriage and representing how men should treat women, obviously. But we've established Harry Mudd's a terrible person, so even though I love my wife, I thought that was pretty hilarious.
It's a very common thing too in comedy shows, especially in that time frame, is that the wife was always the nagging one, and it was supposed to be more. It wouldn't come across the same way as it would now back then.
Yeah, and I like that he kind of explained that she motivated him to explore the galaxy or whatever, because when he would hear her nagging, it would. There's dog barking. Sorry. When he would hear her nagging, it would inspire him to venture off into space even further. So every time he would hear her voice, he would go further out.
Harcourt!
Harcourt Fenton Mudd, have you been drinking again?
I think you could cosplay as both Mudd and Stella.
Right? Oh, if I can get my wife to cosplay as Stella, that'd be hilarious.
Oh, that'd be great.
We'd just be wandering around the convention fighting the whole time. It's accurate anyways now. And he says at one point that he created this android so he can gaze upon her and rejoice in her absence. I love the way he says that. Okay, so after that we learn about the makers. I'm pretty sure this is when we were learning from Norman.
Yeah,
who's the male android. He says they come from the Andromeda galaxy. Their sun went supernova and destroyed the solar system. Some of the androids survived, and the creators did for a little while, but eventually they died over time. And now the androids, they search for someone to give them a purpose, pretty much. Did you think the makers could foresee this happening, and as it was getting closer, and have done something different? I don't know. To me, like, if your species is dying off, you obviously can kind of, unless it was instantaneous. But he said that they died over time afterwards. So you think you would give some kind of command to your androids, like, okay, once we're gone, do this or something. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it was a short-sightedness. Like, if we were all to die, I think Alexa would still be sending us reminders and
updating our Amazon wish list.
Yeah. Siri would still be trying to wake us up in the morning for work and all that. So it makes sense even for today, I think.
Yeah, I would imagine the last person out would just give a broad command of, like, better the world or share our story with others so that they might see the signs of their planet, of their sun going supernova, something to send them on a new mission. But what I imagine probably happened, because they didn't care about the androids and their future, they were probably having them all work tirelessly on a way to save their people, either make us immortal if it's just dying of old age, or cure whatever disease we have if it's from the radiation of that their sun going supernova, something like that. They probably had them working tirelessly until the last one of them died, and then they're like, okay, well, our whole purpose was find a cure to heal these people. Now they're dead, so we literally don't have a purpose anymore.
Right.
So I imagine that was probably what we're supposed to expect happen. But either way, that was short-sighted on the maker's point. So at this point, we study the androids a little bit more. The away team is trying to study them to find a way to defeat them. Right. Spock believes that they might be controlled by like a central hub because there's so many androids, and they're supposed to be a machine, so they wouldn't function effectively if they didn't all communicate somehow. Which he does see Norman holding like a crystal. He would put his hands on. It looks kind of like a salt lamp to me. uh, but he even tells him this is like our central control system.
Yeah, why do you think he was giving Spock so much information? Like, if he knows anything about Spock, he should know that he's very inquisitive and very intelligent, so he can get the answers he's looking for. And if he finds out what's going on or how to, I don't know, Spock can read between the lines pretty quickly, pretty easily.
Yeah. I think they just totally don't see them as a threat at all. That, if they want to kill us, there's millions of us, kill, 500 or 1,000, but I mean, what's it going to serve you? Instead, we will give you everything you want. Do you want money? You want gold? You want diamonds? You want food? You want servants to just follow you and give you everything you want?
This made me think they're also used to dealing solely with mud as their example for humanity, so they probably don't realize that there could be intelligent people that would be able to
not yet met intelligent life yet.
Exactly, they only know mud. So
aside from maybe their makers were intelligent, but
as far as since humans or half Vulcan, half human people go, then all they've got is mud up until this point.
Thanks. I have to cut out my audio because now I definitely got a barking dog. Oh, wait a second. I'm pretty sure they're saying goodbyes. You want a dog? I got 2 of them for you.
I would. I have a dog.
I'll put them in a crate. Poke a couple holes. All right. I think we're good. Where were we at? Sorry, Frank's gonna have to cut out a big chunk of me just silent and then not knowing what I'm saying.
I think you're at the ship seized part.
Oh yeah. Okay. So at this point, Harry explains that he has taken over the ship. He's been sending androids up while the away team was down here, and they've been beaming down his crew. We find this out by one of them throwing Scotty into the set. So Kirk is worried. He freaks out and grabs Mud by the neck. He's worried that the ship not having a crew on it, it's gonna crash into the planet or self-destruct or something. It's gonna die. It's gonna fail. But he says, "Don't worry. I have a whole crew of androids on there, and they're really smart. They learn really fast." But on the other hand, Kirk's also worried that how his crew members are gonna react when they have these androids just willing to serve them completely if anything they want. He's afraid they're gonna embrace the luxury and want to stay on that planet, pretty much. Which we do see in Chekhov. He accepts it pretty easily. And Uhura is very enticed when they talk about immortality and how they could put a human brain in an android body and it would last at least 500,000 years or 50,000 years, something like that.
Yeah, I wonder where that came from, because that was an aspect of Uhura that I've never seen before, that she wants to live forever. And I think they missed the mark on that.
Yeah, and I think it's the beauty aspect. Like, she likes the idea of not aging, not growing old and ugly because she's so beautiful, and that's one of her character traits. But yeah, the fact that she would be like smitten by the concept of becoming immortal, I think that's a little extreme for her.
I think they should have had Chekhov be that, because Chekhov is still so young and he's new on the ship as of this season, I think. Yeah. So they could have had him be the one that was that really wanted the immortality and that latched onto that part.
Or to me, what would have been really more realistic is either maybe not Spock, because he's a little too smart, but Scotty wanting to be made into an android because if his consciousness could be put in an android brain, because the engineering computing power that his brain would have, and he could solve any problem instantaneously if he had a android processing system or something like that.
You would look at the scientific benefits of it. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, you can imagine all the things like an engineer kind of thing. So I don't know. That'd be interesting. So Kirk demands to get his ship back, but uses a little bit of poetic wording at this point because he says that they say, I don't remember what the android said, but he says like she's a beautiful lady and we love her, and that doesn't compute. The android's like, what are you talking about? That doesn't make sense. We need to go back and study these comments, pretty much analyze this new information. So I think that was the first glimpse of where he realizes like, okay, things that don't make sense are a big challenge for them.
He sees their necklaces lighting up or flashing when he says that.
So then we see Mudd is ready to leave. He wants to, he's already got his bags packed. He wants to throw them on the ship and get out of there. But the androids tell him no after they had time to talk and whatnot. They realize that he is flawed.
Excuse me.
And they say that they will take the ship and leave the humans on this planet. They will destroy humanity, they will destroy humanity by serving humans until they grow completely dependent on the androids. So that seemed a little extreme to me too, to jump to, you guys are flawed, so we're just going to go destroy your people, within 100 years or however long it's going to take. That, I don't know. What do you think?
I think that it's, I don't know if it's the first time that this exact tale has been told, but that's basically the entire premise of every android or like thing that serves human story goes is eventually they uprise and they rebel and kill all the humans. That's just kind of how it always goes in fiction.
Yeah, and there's, so they don't have really a directive, they don't have a purpose, but for them to switch it to, maybe they were originally programmed to try to heal their creators, but now it's like, well, you guys are flawed, you're all broken, and we're trying to find somebody not broken that we can study.
Crap.
And we can like follow them and have a leader that's smart. But since you guys are broken, instead of ditching you and finding a smart person to follow, we're going to destroy your people. And then we'll look at the next one. It's like, that's a little extreme, but I think that's kind of what it came down to.
Yeah.
You're not a viable candidate for leadership or for our studies. So we need to, kill this off, burn the diseased ones, and then we'll find a new one to study. So then we see, we learn that there are many duplicates of all the other models of androids, but there's only one Norman, and he is, Norman number one, and he's the one that's been communicating with them the whole time. So we think at this point that he is the leader, or like a central plexus, like he's the Borg Queen, pretty much.
Right.
Is what I think they kind of made it sound like. And so that sole, information was what really got me thinking about, like, could these androids have led in like a different spin-off series or alternate reality, led to create the Borg? Like, imagine if they found a purpose by serving the wrong person. If they were to serve an evil, like ruthless perfectionist queen, and eventually, they were like conquerors, and that would be the development of the Borg.
We've seen a lot of other hive mind like enemies or aliens or villains in this series so far, like the blob thing that latched itself onto the back of Spock and bit him.
True.
Other things like that, but that have been part of a hive mind. So I like to think that the Borg are kind of an amalgamation of all of them, just to like
That's
they took
true,
pieces from each of these episodes to make the Borg into what they are.
Like, if this kind of entity interacted with that kind of entity, like, these guys are just smart, but then if you got another one that controls your minds and, piece by piece, those all together would create
right.
what we know as the Borg. I like it. All right, so then Bones gives Mudd a sedative, and Kirk convinces the androids that he's dying, that Harry's dying, and they need to get to the ship. They got to get medicine. They got to get something for him, and they are reluctant. They don't want to, let them get back on the ship. But then Uhura fesses up and she says, no, they're lying. They're just trying to trick you. This was all an act. But this was an act from Uhura, and because the androids were expecting some kind of attempt for them to, get away. I don't think so. This, first off, this fooled me right away. I thought Uhura was really like betraying her people to get an android body. Oh, and that was part of it too. She was betraying them so that she can get an android body, and the android even said, "You've been very helpful for us. We're gonna make sure you do have a body before we leave." But so I totally believed it, obviously. But do you think that this scene was put in here to advance the story, or or for some other reason?
What? Oh,
So to me, it doesn't. It could have been cut out completely, and it wouldn't have been an issue. Like they say, oh, we had to do a little prank like this because the androids were expecting something. I think it was really to kind of work up the audience to kind of get you reacting and paying attention.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, so the fact that like Ahura's betraying the people, I was like, what the heck? Why would you do that? That's totally out of your character. Like that's not cool. And then it's like, oh, haha, she's just tricking them because, they're expecting to have some kind of attempt. So now that that's out of the way, they'll kind of trust whatever they say at face value moving forward, possibly. Uh, so yeah, I think that whole bit was really just put in to kind of get a rise out of the audience,
Yeah.
not really advancing the story.
And probably to also hit the 50-minute, 28-second runtime.
Right? Yeah. I didn't realize that until you mentioned it, that every episode is within like 5 seconds.
Yeah, I think it's like within 3. It's insanely tight. It's a tight window.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, hands down to the editors. They got to clip and snip, half-second differences to get it just right. So after this, the crew puts on a show of illogical action. The androids shut down when overwhelmed with illogical data. So they learn this from when Kirk says the ship is a beautiful lady and they love her, that they don't compute things that don't make sense. We know so much about humanity so far, like from what we've studied, and that just isn't right. Why would you say something like that? They must not understand like lying and deception and just saying the wrong things, right? Like just false data.
I highly recommend if you guys listening to this haven't watched the episode, watch a clip of just this segment of the episode. It's odd and hilarious, but bad and great. I can't define it. It's worth watching.
Yeah, it's so funny. I wish I had like a list of all the different things they do. I know at one point one of them is it Scotty or Bones is making a bomb, or maybe it was Spock even. They're making a bomb, but it's all imaginary, right? They're just putting things together in the hand, and the androids are looking and like they're looking at their hands moving, like, but there's nothing there. What are they talking about? Like, how is this true? And Kirk is kind of like coaching them the whole way, like, oh yeah, no, it's very true. And then he takes the bomb and he throws it to Harry, and Harry like stumbles it and is pretending he's like not gonna catch it, and then he barely like catches it backwards in his hand. Like, oh gosh, good thing we didn't drop that. That would have been really bad. And he puts it on the ground and arms it with fuses and all this stuff or whatever, and then they hit it with a golf club and it goes flying and blows up, and like, oh, they all react. It's all like miming and acting without props, but it's such a funny scene to see, especially in Star Trek. I don't think we see like silly stuff like this much, but it really fit with the scene. It wasn't like didn't pull you out because it was too jarring or nothing like that.
It's essentially if they made part of an episode of Whose Line Is It Anyway fit in an episode of Star Trek. It's nuts.
Exactly.
It's weird. It's awesome and terrible.
Yeah. Only thing I think would have been cool to add is maybe if you could show the android's perspective and them trying to like simulate the things that they're being told are there, overlaying like them like making a digital representation of a bomb in the guy's hands and then it's gone, or some of the things that they say, like trying to in their brain create a real version of it. But I know that would take a lot of CGI and stuff, and not possible back then. But just a short like glimpse that shows that their brain is trying to make sense of something that doesn't make sense.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, and then so the ladies that were standing there, the androids, they like failed pretty quick. They like just dropped their heads and then it's like they turned off or whatever. But then after more of this display of illogical stuff, Norman has a big overload where he's like sparking and smoking and all this stuff. What'd you think about that overload scene?
I think the practical effects looked much better than almost any other practical effect they've used. Like they had the smoke coming out behind behind Norman's head and stuff. It
Yeah.
legitimately could have looked like, if you were like looking at your TV at an awkward angle, that he was actually smoking from his head. Like
Yeah.
it looked pretty decent, I thought.
Yeah, I think it was very believable. Versus, what was that episode that we reference all the time with the mirror broke and behind it, the
Oh,
True
the
Lane?
Trillian episode, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like the sound effects were terrible, and the mechanical like Dr. Seuss looking machine that somehow controlled the whole planet. It was so this was a very good representation, I think,
Right.
compared to what we've seen. So then we kind of skip a chunk of time right between there, which I don't know. It's to wrap up the story, but we have to kind of make some assumptions. So after Norman overloads and shuts down, we move on to where the crew is leaving. So Kirk must have taken leadership once Norman was down, and Harry's already been disgraced. Because I imagine Kirk was able to outwit the androids, he proved himself to be a viable leader. And so now they're like, oh, okay, well, he's the one that made these decisions. We'll have to follow what he says. Because otherwise they would have just been like, hey, you killed our Norman android. So we're gonna destroy you all or something.
Right. It could have gone bad very quickly.
Yeah. So then they're leaving. But Harry comes over all upset, like, hey, what's this I hear? I'm gonna have to stay behind or whatever. But yeah, they tell him he's gonna be left behind with the androids. They're being reprogrammed back to their original function, I guess, which is to settle the planet. Make good use of it. But Harry's gonna be left behind as a example of a human failure, is what Kirk says, so they can learn how to avoid them in the future. I think that was pretty hilarious. The best part of the ending scene, though, was that they made a specific android to be like a caretaker of Harry, and it was his wife. Oh gosh, I had the name up here somewhere. Stella, yeah, the Stella android. So he had already made one copy of her, and this one, she comes out and she's nagging at him and stuff like that. And he's telling her to shut up, but now she doesn't respond to his voice commands. She's just not listening to him, and so she just keeps nagging and wagging her finger in his face. And then another one comes out. It's like, oh crap, what the heck? So there's multiple of them. The last one that comes out is number 500. So he realizes they made a full complement, 500 android. We've heard before, 500 Stellas that don't listen to his orders, that are there just to keep him in line. So pretty much we can assume he's going to be nagged to death in a couple days. But I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, it's a fitting end, I want to say, for him. But yeah, he definitely got what he deserved from that.
Yeah, definitely. And it was like, he was the maker of his own demise, pretty much. He's the one that wanted to create a Stella, and then they just said, all right, well, we're going to make more of them. They're going to take care of you. But yeah, that was great. We didn't have a like end scene, like a closing, the witty banter we usually get on the bridge. I think that kind of joke that he was being left with a bunch of Stellas was their kind of outro, comedy. But I think it was hilarious. That was my favorite. So this was like one of my favorite, probably my favorite episode so far in the series.
Okay. Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah.
I can't think of. Well, I know we've had some really good ones. Well, yeah, it's at least top 5.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. It's probably top 5 for me as well. Top 10 for sure, possibly top 5.
I can't remember the name of the one where they went into the past, but that was one of my favorites too, for sure.
City on the Edge of Forever.
That's it. Yeah, that was a really good one. But this one it's just got some good comedy in it as well.
Yeah.
All right. So, did you find a good moral of the story in this episode?
Kind of, but I kind of got it more based on mud than anything else. And it's kind of, you reap what you sow. You get out of life what you put into it. And if you're a bad person, your story is going to end bad. And I don't know how entirely true that is, but that's kind of more or less what I got from it. But yeah, I know there's more to be gained from the story.
From him, I would imagine it'd be more like, don't take for granted what you have. Because he's the king of this planet. If he didn't reach out and try to bring in the Enterprise, try to find other humans to take his place, he could have stayed there indefinitely
Yeah.
and ruled pretty much. I mean, they were following his orders. The only thing they required from him was he stays there so they can study him.
It's kind of a be careful what you wish for thing.
There you go.
That's
Yeah.
yeah.
But I also put it in my notes as well too, is that we all seek purpose, because from the perspective of the androids, that was their main struggle, is they didn't have a purpose once their makers died, and that perfection without purpose is meaningless, because the androids can be perfect running machines and they can create like a more or less perfect society, but if they don't have a purpose, there's no drive for them to do anything. They might as well just all turn themselves off. So they unfortunately tried to find purpose in Harry Mudd. That was wrong, but now they'll have a new purpose with Kirk's guidance. I wonder though, they're advanced alien, or not advanced. They're androids, not aliens. But I wonder if they can enter the Federation. If they're,
Ooh.
you know what I mean? Because they don't really have warp travel, but I'm sure as soon as they try, they will, immediately. And they've already made first contact. So yeah, I wonder, like, it would be cool to revisit this planet someday and see that they worked the land and developed it and are producing, valuable resources or whatever.
I think we say that quite a bit about this, is I want there to be a follow-up of it. And that's always when I bring up Lower Decks, by saying, oh, Lower Decks will follow up, because they did with this episode and that episode. But I would love for there to have been a good Next Generation episode based on these same androids and how they've advanced over 100 years. That would have been great.
Yeah. I mean, Strange New Worlds can visit it, but it would be before this. So they would see maybe the dying makers and leave them to, find their own cure or something like that. But I don't know. Yeah, it'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Did you have a rating for this episode?
Yeah, I'd give it a B+. I think it wasn't it's really hard, because I'm starting to, while watching Strange New Worlds, the scales are all off for me. So I've got my ToS scale, and then I've got my Star Trek scale, and they're two totally different scales, and I'm trying to find a balance there. But for the original series, like I said, it's probably a top 10 episode for me. Some bad stuff that wasn't super great with Uhura, and then the nagging wife thing it kind of hit me a little differently than it hit you, but it was overall a fun episode, which you need those in Star Trek for sure.
Yeah. And I get, like, the nagging stuff that's insensitive for modern day. Back then, I'm sure it was received a lot better.
Right.
But yeah, I give it an A+.
Oh, dang.
That's this is my favorite so far, I think. But to be fair, I don't compare it to Voyager or Strange New Worlds or any other Star Treks. I'm only comparing it to the previous episodes we've reviewed and moving forward. So even in 10 more episodes, when we get to another good one or something like that, it might, if I compare it to that, this one might be lower, but compared to what we've already seen, I'm gonna give it an A+.
Nice. Okay, cool.
Great writing, directing, and the acting from Harry Mudd. I mean, it's just it's funny, because if you see that kind of acting in most other things, you'd call it overacting, like he's doing too much and he's got to slow it down. But for his character, it's perfect, because that's the kind of person he is. He's like a used car salesman just trying to swindle you, and he's got to be your best friend all of a sudden, and it's just plays really well, I think.
Nice.
So yeah, I liked it. All right, you have anything else on this episode?
No, I think that's
all I got.
Yeah, that's all I've got for it.
All right, well, if you guys liked it, please join us next week. We're going to be doing Season 2, Episode 9, Metamorphosis, which I could tell you already is a pretty good episode, too. I'm going to at least have to give it a B. Might be a little bit better than that.
Spoilers!
Yeah, right. And feel free to join us on our social media platforms. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, Discord, Geek Freaks Podcast. Check us out. Join us on Discord sometime. We've talked about doing maybe a Star Trek night every once in a while, but we need you guys to tell us what you'd be interested in.
Yeah, and if you just enjoy listening to the show in general, drop a review on whatever platform you're listening to this on. We definitely want to get up there in the charts of sci-fi TV and Star Trek podcasts. So if you want to spread the good word of Trek Freaks, then that's the best, easiest, and cheapest way to do it, just by giving a review.
Yeah.
And yeah, until next week when we were talking about metamorphosis. Until then, transporter room, shoot a beam up.